Hello, everyone, and welcome to Guildmaster Gaming. Today, I'm sitting here with director Jason Sheedy of To Hell with You, a short film that we're going to be looking at Film Quest this year, and I've had the opportunity to already take a look at it and see what it's about. So and just always like to tell people, if you like these things, please like them and share them out. If you do subscribe, that's great also. But let's help out the independent filmmakers by getting the word out about what they're doing. And one of them is here now. Jason, please introduce yourself and tell us about To Hell with You.
Hey, yeah, I'm Jason, and thanks a bunch for putting this on. We were just chatting beforehand. Thank you for the exposure for these short films. It's always, I think, a little tricky to get press for these, and certainly appreciate it. So, I feel like the easiest way to describe the film is that it's a horror comedy that kind of harks back to a mixture of something like The Evil Dead and Death Becomes Her. That kind of, I guess, that kind of tonality. It would also probably be helpful if I told you who I am and what I did on the film instead of skirting right to that.
That's
I'm
fine.
Jason Sheedy. I wrote, directed, and edited the film. And yeah, it was a shoot we did back in March, and we're kind of just starting out the festival circuit. Film Quest is going to be one of the first fests we play, and yeah, it was a really fun film to make, and I hope it's as fun as it is to watch as it was to make.
All right. It was a lot of fun. It's got that nice little twist. And I'm old enough to I have to ask, what was some of your inspiration in looking in the past for To Hell with You?
I think, I mean, I grew up, I mean, kind of like the classic, like I grew up on horror films, and especially, things that I was probably far too young to be watching, that have left an impression for better or for worse. I'd like to think for better. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is trying to sort of find that sweet spot where, to me, I mean, I think a lot of people have a fondness for the sort of the 70s, 80s era of horror filmmaking, and I love modern horror as well. But I think because of that sort of connection to my childhood,
Oh,
being the ones that sort of oh, did it break up?
just a little, but I
Okay.
think we're good.
Those sure. The raw footage, right? This is
Yep.
raw and real.
And
But
luckily, it's usually will still keep recording, and then I'll just when it actually compiles, it cleans up quite a bit.
cool. You'll see me freeze on some weird face that'll be there, and it'll be perfect. That's why I comb my hair for this. So hopefully we'll. But no, I think, having grown up on the sort of 70s, 80s horror films, and then getting into filmmaking right before high school, and as a kid, and, running around with the camera. So I sort of, I guess I have more of an affinity for those because those are the things that directly correlated to me getting into filmmaking. Um, John Carpenter's The Thing was a big one. Dawn of the Dead was a big one. The Evil Dead, of course, which, I mean, again, this one has probably some pretty direct Evil Dead inspiration. But I think there was something about those that, I guess, the aesthetic and the feeling, which is ultimately why we decided to make this a period film. I guess that's sort of the biggest comparison, is that this takes place in sort of the late 70s, because we were, I mean, very bluntly trying to sort of match that filmic aesthetic. Even in the shot design, like I normally like to move the camera around a lot and go handheld and do some more kind of wild things. But for this, we sort of, I guess, challenged ourselves to try and find ways to sort of mimic more. Um, I don't know. I guess just like little things, like we'd lock up the camera in situations where I might be more prone to move it, or we'd try like a slow zoom or something like that. But it also sort of, I think, blends styles with something you might see in Evil Dead, where you do see Sam Raimi do those more crazy handheld, moving around Dutch angles, and then we go to some more traditional things you might see in like The Shining or Rosemary's Baby. So yeah, I think that was a long-winded way of me saying I think I just like those movies and wanted to sort of pay homage to them in my own way.
Okay. Now I might date myself here, but when your priest character showed up, I have to ask. I remember Father Guido Sarducci. Was that an inspiration, or am I reaching here?
I think we looked at a ton of different characters. I remember even thinking of, I'm trying to think of I can't remember his name, or Reverend Kane from Poltergeist 2,
Okay. Yep.
like that kind of, like, I mean, just we were pulling comps from just different things, some that were priests, some that weren't, trying to find just like this eccentric looking character, because we wanted to be very clearly not not necessarily like a good dude that was maybe like an act, a con man instead of a priest kind of thing. Like that's kind of what's implied. So yeah, I think again, so much of this was just like grabbing from different sources and trying to sort of like mix and match it in ways. Same with the characters, like Brett Brooks, who plays Doyle. We were talking to mixing a lot of different like characters from different character actors. Like, I mean, I think Beetlejuice is obviously a big influence, the Joker, things like that, where you sort of have these iconic characters and trying to sort of cram them into one person and just like mix them up and see what came out.
Okay. So I'm not reaching too far to say I first saw Father Guido Sarducci from Saturday Night Live.
Sure. The only reason I know about that is because of my father. I remember there was a very specific thing he showed me when I was younger. So yeah, it took me a minute, but I was like, wait a second, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, if you ever seen him, he was always in the black long coat with the big hat, and he always wore glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Okay,
No, there's
so
definitely there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got that's the inspiration of the film. We got some inspiration for the characters, So let's kind of jump back a little bit further. We'll jump away from the film for a bit. Well, no, let's first continue on with that. What was one of the aspects of the film that you felt was probably one of the harder things to pull off with what you were doing?
I think I think one of the biggest challenges was probably the period setting, just because it's actually so that the room that we shot in is actually my wife and I's bedroom. So we shot this at my house, and we were kind of trying to find ways to cut corners with budget, but obviously not sacrifice the look of the film. So the easiest way to do that was, instead of renting a space, just basically turn our bedroom into this 1970s kids bedroom. So that, I think, that was sort of the most inherent challenge, because everything else was at least more approachable, from like we can go online and we can buy these costumes, and I did all the makeup for the film. I can do those tests ahead of time, but it was sort of difficult to build out this room for the set and obviously maximize our time. So we actually ended up doing that. We literally built the room. I think it was a couple weeks before, to sort of have it ready and know what we were doing, and then we took it down in pieces so that the day before we could kind of set it up without completely sort of messing up our personal life. And my wife is a saint and very patient, and I love her dearly for that. So she's always been really supportive, and she actually is the designer of the film. So she's my, I'll set stuff up and she'll tell me if it looks good or horrible, if I should try again. But
Okay, so now kind of we'll stay with the film. So you said that Film Quest is going to be one of the first. Uh, so you're just starting out on your festival circuit?
correct. Yeah, we just started this fall. We've had the film wrap for a while, but I think I mean, the fall is such a good time for genre fests. And it's funny because I feel like so many of them happen, right in that like end of August to early November timeframe. There's like dozens and dozens of genre fests. So that was kind of the push for us to sort of just see how many we could get into around this time.
Okay, so just real quick, if you have an idea, what are some of the festivals can look towards to see your film?
So, as of right now, the most immediate one is Film Quest and the Savannah Film Fest down in Savannah, Georgia. And that one's really special because I graduated from the Savannah College of Art and Design back in 2010. And this is the first film we've actually gotten into the fest. And it's going to be playing in the After Dark block on Halloween night, actually. So that'll be cool. So I guess that's right before, yeah, Film Quest. And then we also just got into a festival in Mexico City called Morbido Fest. So that'll be playing there as well. So that's kind of fun. I love being able to play in international fest as well, because it's just kind of neat to like look at the little map on Film Freeway where you submit your things and sort of see all the little areas your film is played. So that's become almost like an addiction. It's like, oh, we haven't played here yet. Let's try to enter a festival here so we can fill up this map with all the different places. But so those are the most immediate ones, and we've got a few more notifications coming in the coming weeks here.
All right. Sounds like something to look forward to see how that's going. So kind of going back now, talking about yourself. We already talked about the inspiration for the film. So what was the inspiration for you to be a filmmaker?
I've always enjoyed movies. I've always been a huge, just grew up loving movies, loved watching movies, loved going to the movies. One of the earliest films I remember having that feeling was Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember I have like a very vivid memory of like sitting on my floor with like, a Coke and popcorn and just watching this film and being like completely enamored by people's faces melting and things like that. Horror definitely struck me more as a kid, just because, I mean, it was one of those things where, it would stick with me for a while. Like many films did, but nothing quite stuck with me like horror. again, for better or for worse, I'd be getting nightmares. And I loved horror when I was a kid, but I was completely, now I'm completely desensitized for the most part. But back then, everything was new and it was horribly frightening and things. So I think there was a fascination that came from why does this scare me, and also the biggest thing was the effects, the practical effects. Like I was completely mystified by how they could make somebody's head blow up, or somebody gets this creature, like just even seeing films like Alien or Poltergeist. That freaking clown doll got me when I was a kid. And so I guess my fascination started there because I wanted to see and explore how they might do that and see if I could do it. So I became that kid around the neighborhood where I'd go online, or I'd try to like find different articles or watch different TV shows. I remember Discovery Channel had this show called Movie Magic, where they would kind of take you behind the scenes, and it was sort of like this. I think it was weekly, but regardless, they showed you all these different ways that they did creature things and special effects and stunt work, and that kind of fueled my interest in that even further. So I think my first sort of foray into it was just trying to figure out sort of like the magic trick behind filmmaking, and maybe sort of the fascination behind that. So I would go out and I would buy, like the insecticide sprayers, and I would fill those with fake blood that I would make myself. And I remember I had this one memory where I was figuring it out. I had like a hose around me, and I had this insecticide spray. I had my buddy pump up, and I said, squeeze the trigger and it's going to shoot out of me like blood. And it didn't shoot out. And I couldn't figure out why. I later found out that it like gotten stuffed up with something. So I go to unscrew the insecticide sprayer that I've not depressurized, and it just like hit me. And like, so I was covered in blood. And I remember my mom was having like some friends over for like a card game or something. And I like walked into the kitchen just drenched in blood. And like, I just remember staring at all of them. And they were just kind of like, my mom knew, like, I think my mom, I don't fully remember. I'm pretty sure she knew what I was doing. So she was kind of like, whereas her friends were like, what the hell's wrong with your son? But I did stuff like that all the time. My buddies, we all lived on the same street together. So we would go out and make films. And, I'd always be looking for ways to find things to do. We'd fill up little Ziploc baggies with fake blood and make fake heads and step on them and things like that. So special effects is sort of what pulled me in. And then the idea of just wanting to tell stories and sort of share that with an audience is what I think kept me going.
All right. And definitely sounds like horror just was a big pull. So
A lot of fake blood, a lot of fake blood.
a lot of fake blood growing up. Okay, so that was your inspiration for getting into film. And you finished up this one. Now, do you have some other works that you've already done that are out there that people can kind of check out and see some of your body of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to my website, which is just my name, it's Jason M as in Marshall, Sheedy, Sheedy, jasonmsheedy.com. I have all the films we've made. We've got one other film right now that's still kind of tied up in festivals. That should be, it's actually, I think, should be coming out in a few months, I believe, from this interview. We actually got lucky enough to get distribution with an anthology film. So that'll be coming out soon, and I'll be posting about that. But that one's called The Reclaimers. That's like the most recent one we've done. So that's not quite available yet, but everything else, and these have all had the good fortune of playing at FilmQuest, and we've had a great time sharing it with the FilmQuest audience every year. And that's one of my favorite things about coming to FilmQuest is just kind of reconnecting with the people we've met. And it's like, what'd you do this year? Like, here's our thing, and then watching their thing. And so we had one that played a couple years ago called The Mages of Rage and the Desecration of the House of Mimicry, which is a very long title. And yeah, so they all live online in some way, whether on my website or again, we've also been fortunate to have stuff distributed through Dust and Alter, who've also been at the fest, and they've been really cool. So yeah, it's all floating out there in the ether.
Okay, so we've talked about that's what's in the past. What can we look forward to? Can you talk about any of the projects you're working on now?
Yeah, 100%. So we actually just shot a new short a couple weeks ago. A buddy of mine named Josh Matthews and the producers on these films, Kyle Steinecke, are actually going to be, we're sort of like kind of collecting together and forming a little company. So we're going to start releasing some more films under that banner, and sort of like helping keep each other accountable, just so we can kind of put out some more content. And that's going to be called Heebie Jeebies Pictures. So keep on the lookout for that. But outside of that, we're always writing. We're always trying to, I've got like a Google Doc that's dozens of pages of long. It's just, I'll be working in the middle of the day and have an idea, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and write something down and think it's great. And then I check it in the morning and it's absolute crap, but it stays in the doc because you never know. Uh, so I just keep filling up that doc. And then, I mean, once I have free time, which it's sort of getting to be far and few between, because we have been lucky enough to keep making stuff. And then because I'm the editor on the projects, like once we write something, shoot it, then I will generally go into, months of post-production, depending on how crazy the project is. Alongside, I work full time as an editor as well. So once all that's said and done, it doesn't leave too much time left over. But if I do, I will try to write more projects, and just, I really have been exploring, I guess, the sci-fi horror space, just because I just really enjoy it. It's a really fun space to play in as a filmmaker. But B, I think it's got a lot of legs as far as commerciality and sort of being able to sort of sell proof of concept ideas for bigger projects. So that's been the goal, and I think that's still kind of the goal. It's just to kind of keep exploring different stories and different formats, and be working on feature screenplays in the background, and just kind of throwing it all out there and seeing if anything sticks. So
Okay. And while you're doing all these different things, it sounds like you're keeping yourself really busy. What does Jason do to kind of kick back and relax in those times when it's just like, got to turn off the brain and back off?
just exercising and eating right, man. Playing video games and eating cheesesteaks. This is probably fun. So I'm a musician as well. So I do like, every now and then, if I want to be creative, but I don't necessarily like, it's to me, it's like stretching a different creative muscle. Like sometimes it's just, even if I'm not going to post it, or I feel like that's kind of the stigma these days. It's like, if you're going to make something, you got to post it and put it out there. And music is something that I have done that for sure. But it is something that I've found it can just be like, I'm just going to record a cover song, tonight, and just for me, and just something to stretch those muscles. That's more fun and relaxing. And it's something I can usually do in, a day or a weekend, and it's short term, and it's got that instant gratification. But I do genuinely love just, my wife and I, we just moved into a house a couple years ago, and we've got a front porch, which I've never had. So that's a game changer. So honestly, just like spending time with her, and we got two little kittens and a dog, and just spending time together and drinking coffee or making an old fashioned and sitting and telling stories and reminiscing is a good night. So
Sounds like good stuff. So looking to, let's say, maybe the far future, if you had a dream project that you could do, what would it be?
Definitely a feature. I mean, that's certainly where we're gearing up for. We've gotten a few feature scripts done. I would say the one that I'm really excited about right now is a feature version of a short that played at Film Quest last year called The Reclaimers. So I think that would be, it's kind of been, as of right now, it's like the closest one to my heart as far as something I'm really excited about doing. And I feel like it's kind of a good climate for it. I would love to expand more into the feature world, though, and find ways to sort of keep making content regardless. But if we could find a way to sort of dip our toes into that, and sort of take what we've learned from making shorts, and how we can pull those off with limited budget and resources, and sort of shift into the feature world, that would be my dream.
Okay. Something maybe for heebie-jeebies to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the plan.
That's okay. So since you're just kind of starting in with this one, it sounds like if you don't get any type of distribution, but it looks like you have some good connections, it will be made available someplace for people to watch after the festival run.
100%. Yeah. Usually and I think a lot of filmmakers would agree, sort of have like a year of, pitching it to fests and things, just to get around like the premiere requirement. So generally speaking, which is always a tease too, because it's like you make something, especially with like the way like YouTube and social media is, you want to make something and put it out there, and kind of just, obviously it takes work, but also you kind of want to let the internet do its thing and see if, there's some way that it goes viral or whatever. So yeah, for sure though, the goal will always be to sort of do the festival run, and see what kind of networking and connections we can get through that, and then put it online, and sort of hopefully have a second life there.
Okay. So it sounds like, are you going to be able to make Film Quest this year?
100%. I will be there.
All right. We'll see you there. That's great. Because yeah, I'll be there for the entire run. So
Perfect. I'll be there. I know I'll probably, we're bouncing around. Like I said, the Savannah
yeah.
Film Fest. So I'm probably going to try to go to that one, but the rest of my team's actually going to be at Film Quest a bit earlier, and then I'll be there Thursday or Friday. I'm still figuring out some travel stuff, but our film plays Saturday, I believe at 11 in the Die Laughing block. I'm butchering the name. I don't remember. The 11 o'clock horror comedy block at Film Quest.
I usually don't even try to remember the names, yeah. So I
I
understand.
feel bad because I know Johnny, or he's somebody's thinking about those, and he's
Oh
gonna be
yeah.
like, "Dang it, Jason."
Yeah,
But
Jonathan is very creative with what he comes up with and trying to make sure everything matches up into good blocks, which makes it a lot of fun because it's usually they're paired up very well. But
100%.
so we've been going for about a half an hour now. I'm going to ask just a couple and one little question, but let you think about what you might want to finish up with telling people. But let me
Sure.
ask you, on your thing, it's one of the things I usually ask because of the audience I have, and that is if someone was to come up to you and say, "Hey, I want to become a filmmaker," what advice would you give them?
It's funny because I always feel like it's a cop out answer, and I feel like I've said this a lot of times, but like it's advice that I received. I mean, way back in the day, they were like, "You want to be a filmmaker? Go make some films." And it was funny because it was told to me like that in a very nonchalant way, and I was just like, "It's terrible advice," but it is the best advice because I do think I used to be to sort of take a longer explanation and trim it down. Like we did make a feature film, our first feature. We'd like to get back into it, but I did do a feature right out of school, and now we're kind of back in the short game, almost did it in a reverse way. And it was a great learning experience and an opportunity to kind of like throw ourselves into the fire and see what happened. And then after that experience, I found myself sort of like waiting for sort of like the perfect storm of resources and money and things to actually do something again. And it kept me from making a movie for like 2 or 3 years or something, which is strange to me now because we do at least one a year, and we have done that for at least the last 5 or 6 years. So for me personally, yeah, it's always just been about buckling down and making something. And obviously you want to put in the time and effort and try to get it as perfect and as close to your vision as you want. But at the same time, it's like that fine line of like, I was prohibiting myself from making stuff. And I finally just had to like turn that part of my brain off. And that's when we shot this short film called Finestra, this little simple, like 3-minute sci-fi movie that I wrote in a night. And it was like, let's just go and shoot something. If it's not perfect, it's, whatever. And it's like one of my most, and I mean, I say this humbly, I just to prove a point, like, I think it's like one of the most festivals I've gotten into with a short film. And it's just funny to me that it was such a haphazard, like, write it one night and edit it in 3 weeks and throw it out into the world. So for me, it's always been about just letting go of that little voice that's like, hey, you should wait or something, and just kind of making it. And I don't know, and it shapes as you go, right? Like I think as we're learning as we go, like sometimes like it may not be exactly what you have in mind, but then you shoot it, you get in the post, and you're like, this is better than I had in mind, or it's different, but that doesn't make it worse. Or so yeah. I think just getting out there and making stuff.
That does remind me of a quote I remember. I can't remember who it was that said it. They said, but art is never finished, it's only abandoned. So
Yep. And it's so what's funny about that is my buddy Brett had when we both went to school together down SCAD, and he had a similar saying, which was, it's never finished, it's just turned in. So we kind of had that same mentality of, and it's weird too, because I feel like, I mean, with features, with shorts too, sure, but like with features, ideally that's years anyway, potentially. And with shorts, I think it gets to a point where you just sort of have to, it's like once you get to a year or whatever, it's like, all right, this is in the place where, we've pushed it as much as we can. Or I don't know, maybe that's just my perspective, but I do like the idea of, shooting something, taking the time and putting the effort in to make it the best it can be, but then like putting it out in the world and moving on to the next thing. And that's sort of just, I guess, been our goal the last few years.
all right. So you mentioned that they can find your work on jdmcd.com.
Close. Jason M.
Sheedy,
Sheedy.
Sheedy, Sheedy.
That's fair.
But is there any place else if they're looking for to watch some of your work or see what your work is or how they can follow you? Any place else that they should probably try to find you?
Sure. I'm the most active on Instagram, and I have my laptop next to me because I don't remember what my name is because I'm trying to improve at social media, and admittedly not great. It's at Jason M. Sheedy. So the same thing. Website's jasonmsheedy.com. Instagram is at Jason M. Sheedy. I have Facebook, and I feel like for as little as I go on it anyway, like Instagram's the one I use the most because there's pictures and video, and that speaks to me.
Well,
But
I'll
yeah,
give you
outside
a
of that,
hint. If you use the Meta site, it ties Facebook and Instagram together.
There it is. That's what I need to do. But yeah, that's I'm most active on Instagram, and then yeah, the website, and we're going to be launching a heebie-jeebies pictures site soon as well. But
All
I'll be
right.
linking all of that for my personal stuff.
Okay. So we're kind of finishing up. Is there any last thing you'd like to close up with? Any call outs you'd like to make? Any special promotion, anything like that you'd like to share with people?
Um, I think as far as just like promotions, I mean, I just my big thing. I always feel like you want to get like sentimental at the end of these. You're just like, I mean, I'm very grateful, like I said, for my wife Megan, is she's very supportive, and she's put up with all of my filmmaking endeavors, and those conversations at night where I'm reconsidering things and trying to figure things out. So she's always been my rock with that, and helped along the way. And then just the team that I've kind of, I guess, grown over the years, and we're expanding. And you can certainly go to my page and you'll see connections to all those people. But they've really been a special part of, I think, this journey, because they've sort of supported me in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously working on the films, but also just like growing that group of friends that it takes me back to the idea of recreating that feeling I had when I was a kid making movies, and I think that's the feeling I've been chasing, which I don't know if that's a sad thing or not. Is because I've always said, like, the day that it stops being fun is the day I'd rather not do it anymore, and I do believe that, and I think for me it's always been fun, because it's sort of just stepping back into those shoes, being in eighth grade, running around with a high 8 camera, covering my buddy in fake blood and making his parents question whether or not we should stay friends, that type of thing. But that's been, I think, the most valuable part of this for me, is just sort of reconnecting with that part of why I even got into making films. So I hope to keep doing that, and I'm really thankful for the team that helps me do that.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Jason. And everybody, again, if you like this, please like and share it out. Help promote the work of what we have people doing here. And again, thank you very much for talking with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see everybody next time.